Hey everyone, Gill Gross here post-match. Carlos Alcaraz versus Alexander Zverev, Australian Open 2024 quarterfinal. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video. Alexander Zverev with his biggest win since beating Alcaraz at Roland Garros before his ankle injury. The number 2 seed is out. Zverev over Alcaraz in 4 sets in a way that nobody really could have ever predicted. Twists and turns, drama. The favorite for the match shifted, I think, a couple of times in this one. It was something else. Very memorable match. And let me start before I get into the match with just some general praise for Zverev that I think he deserves, which is the guy is a resilient competitor. And this is why mental game is too general a phrase in tennis. And I think Zverev is often slapped with the label, his mental game is bad. And there's a reason for that. He gets nervous. He's blown a lot of chances, especially at majors. And that has certainly hurt his ability to actually get over the finish line and achieve what he wants to achieve in his career. But there's another side to Alexander Zverev's mental game, which has nothing to do with nerves, and it has all to do with toughness and the way you compete. And this was a great example of how good he is in that area, because there was a blown lead here. We saw the bad side of Zverev's mental game. He could not maintain the level that got him to a position where he was serving for the match, and we'll get into more detail. But he did go back to work at the very start of the 4th set. He did not let it linger. A lot of players would let that linger. A ton of them. There was also, in my opinion, some fatigue in the 4th set that set in. He fought through it. There was discomfort, I think, in the 4th set in terms of his feet being a little bit battered. He fought through it. He wouldn't have been in this match. He wouldn't have been in this quarterfinal if he wasn't a great match player, because there have been 2 guys who have pushed him to the limits. His game has not been at its best up until this match. And Lucas Klein and Cameron Norrie both pushed him extremely hard. And in the end, Zverev was able to come through both of those matches in 5th set tiebreaks. And while we're at it, we saw this at United Cup. Really tough scheduling, fighting through fatigue, fighting through some major blown chances in that final against Hurkacz. And I said it after United Cup. This guy kind of goes to work, point in, point out, puts whatever happened behind him. He does all that stuff really, really well. He's tough, and he is dogged and resilient. Okay, let's talk about how he started this match. There was a tone-setting issue, certainly, for Alcaraz. I mean, Alcaraz's first service game was horrendous. Zverev didn't really need to do anything to get to love 40. But overall, Zverev's start was in another stratosphere, level-wise. I mean, let's kind of go through it. He was something in the ballpark of 15 for 16 at the net midway through the 2nd set. Midway through the 3rd set, when he was already up 2 sets to love. His movement was super sharp. His serving was unplayable, literally unplayable for the vast majority of his service games. You know the backhand is going to be deadly and consistent. He basically always has that working for him. But let's remind ourselves of why Alexander Zverev has had trouble winning matches quickly en route to this quarterfinal. Why I picked Alcaraz, the main reason I picked Alcaraz to win this quarterfinal, the main reasoning I went with, was because Zverev's forehand has been broken. It's been really bad the whole tournament, and he's had to win in spite of that. Well, this was a completely different forehand that we saw in this match. I was texting with somebody before the match, and we were going through the scenarios, and I said, look, Zverev's forehand, it hasn't been good at all, and it'll be a major problem. But I also did say there is one chance that it's a lot better in this match because he knows it needs to be. And I do think that can happen where he's played a couple of lefties. He's played a guy in Lucas Klein who he probably just wasn't very aware of. But I think coming in against Alcaraz, you know you can't hit short cross-court forehands. Like, you just know you have to go after the ball or he is going to obliterate you. And I just think Alcaraz on the other side of the court, believe it or not, might have helped the forehand a little bit. In addition to coming in knowing the gas tank isn't great here. I've played 2 5-setters. He said before the match, he said in his press conference that he feels good, better than the U.S. Open. But he also admitted it's not 100, and it can't be when you play long matches. So Alcaraz across the net and knowing that he's not 100%, maybe that just encouraged him to go after the forehand. Bottom line, there was a forehand down the line threat, a real offensive forehand down the line threat that's been non-existent. And there was depth in the cross-court forehand consistently, which hasn't been a thing. Alcaraz, in reaction to this very high level from Zverev, how did he respond? Panic. I just think he panicked. He tried to blast his way through the problem. That's what I was seeing. The only thing Alcaraz did to try to change anything was harder, with some foggy-minded drop shots mixed in. And of course, when you're playing Zverev, the pace plays right into his hands. He is a phenomenal absorber. So it got Zverev to up 2-0, 5-2. I think there was a 15-30 with Alcaraz serving at 2-5. Zverev serves for the match at 5-3. The turnaround in this match was more about Zverev getting tight. I'm quick to give Alcaraz credit for a lot of things. I will give Alcaraz some credit shortly, but the 5-3 break of serve, it's not that Alcaraz didn't play a good return game. He did, but it was also just a different Zverev. And there was no stopping Sasha if he just kept playing the same. But his forehand came back to reality, and he started getting safe, and he started getting safe on his serve locations. And that's a big no-no. Obviously, Zverev needs to serve big and get something out of that shot when he's serving for the match at 5-3. But if you look at the locations on his first serves, it was pretty clear that he didn't want to hit second serves because he started hitting these first serves into the relatively middle of the box. And you can look at the first 2 points at the 5-3 game. He's dropping back and he's hitting softer, especially on the forehand. He's hitting loopier, softer forehands. He's giving Alcaraz time to do his thing and tee off offensively. So Alcaraz breaks, back on serve, goes to a tie break. Zverev actually gets the first mini break. He gives it right back with a very tight approach shot. It's a backhand approach down the line, which again, it just wasn't the same Zverev that we saw for the first 2 sets and a half, because that Zverev would have laced a backhand probably, neatly about a foot inside the sideline. And this Zverev hit this backhand down the line, and it was, really right at Alcaraz's forehand. So easy pass for Alcaraz there, and that got him feeling good. Zverev wasn't hitting as big on the groundies, but he was coming forward, and boy, did Alcaraz have some shot making at his disposal. I mean, it was fun. It was electric. The talent was 100% on display in this tiebreak. It was passing shot after passing shot. It was awesome. It was awesome stuff from Alcaraz here. He started to feel confident. He started to have some fun with it. He got a bit of a swagger. Zverev was giving him a chance to kind of use his shot making because the serve was down and the approach shots were all right, but the pace was a little bit lower than what we were seeing. It was giving Alcaraz some time at least. And Carlitos just answered the bell. So let's go to the fourth set. And I'm going to talk now in some more general terms, and then we'll get into some specifics after that. The fourth set, I thought the dynamics of play in general were pretty favorable for Alcaraz. He was continuing to get more time on the ball, finding high percentage opportunities to be offensive on a decently regular basis. Alcaraz was landing first serves. Alcaraz was making returns. He was smartly using the block return. Great play against Zverev, especially if Sasha isn't really, really confident on the forehand at the time. It's really a good idea to just block the ball. You're probably, if you're as fast as Alcaraz, going to get in the point that way. Carlitos was moving extremely well. And it seemed like Zverev, in order to finish points, really kind of had to come forward. But the approach shots and the volleys were sometimes not clinical enough. And that was opening up opportunities for Alcaraz. So those things were all working for Alcaraz. Here's what was going for Zverev. He went back to basically never missing first serves. I think it should be noted that not only were the serves into safer targets in general in the third set, also it was his lowest percentage. Zverev finishes this match, let me say it now, 85% first serves in. 80 freaking 5. In set 4, it was 88%. So you have a Zverev who's hitting every serve, 125 miles per hour basically, or north of that, and he's never missing. So we're starting there, and that's going to get you pretty far in itself. Backhand dynamics for Zverev, very favorable. Extremely favorable. This was a common thread, I think, throughout the match. And that remained the case in the fourth set. I'm going to get into more detail on that. And he limited errors extremely well. He did not make a lot of mistakes. And that's kind of one of the good things about Zverev that we've seen in this tournament, that even when he's playing poorly, he's not necessarily making a lot of cheap errors. When he's playing poorly, he's dropping the ball short. It's passive. It allows his opponents to dictate. But that's better. That's better than being a guy who goes off the rails and just kind of misses everything all over the place. First sign that the fourth set was going to be highly competitive after Alcaraz stormed back in the third set. And at this point, remember, the physical question marks are coming back into play. Obviously, there's tons of momentum for Alcaraz after the tiebreak that he played at the end of the third. And then what happens? First game of the fourth set, we get a blip right away. It cost him that palpable momentum. And this was something that we talked about a lot for Alcaraz second half of last season. When those blips happen at the start of sets, there needs to be a better level of focus. And here at love 15, there was a serve +1, backhand down the line, unforced error that was way out. And you can't miss a simple +1 ball down love 15 after that third set on your backhand and not even come close. It's such a bad error to go down love 30. At 15-30, Alcaraz had a ball off of a drop shot. He dictated the point, drop shotted. Zverev got there, and it was an in-tight play where Alcaraz was too nice. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch. I don't know if the lob was available, but certainly there was no angle to hit around Zverev. You can't go left. You can't go right. That's what happens when the two players are very close to each other at the net. So you have to go straight ahead, right at Zverev. Alcaraz babied it. You have to be ruthless. You have to be mean. And you have to go right at the guy with a little bit of conviction here. Alcaraz didn't. Zverev made a reflex volley and won the point with it. And then on break point, he got a short ball. Alcaraz got a short ball here on break point, and he missed the forehand down the line wide. Was not a good miss. Another really bad unforced error where he's in a winning position, and he probably went too close to the line because it was an approach shot. Zverev has great passing shots, as we'll talk about, but it was a forehand approach shot miss. It's not what you want. So Zverev broke right away in the fourth set. Alcaraz broke right back, but it didn't matter really at that point. At that point, the third set, it was kind of in the rear view. The momentum was shot because Alcaraz played that bad game, at the start of the fourth. Let's skip ahead to 3-4 now. At 3-4, what I want to highlight, and this is a Zverev service game, there are two epic rallies that potentially decide the match. Epics. And one was at deuce, and Alcaraz with one of the most mind-bending gets you will see. And he reset the point with the lob, but he ends up in the next offensive, he ends up getting in an offensive position in the end, goes to the drop shot, doesn't come close to working. Zverev got there very easily, backhand approach out volley winner. Couple points later, add in another point where Alcaraz's defense is really shining, and he ends up going from defense to offense. Forehand cross-court approach shot from Alcaraz. Zverev comes up with the pass, the cross-court pass that forced a very difficult volley error from Alcaraz. You look at those 2 points at 3-4, when Carlitos had come back from down 40 love in that game, was applying a ton of pressure, looking for the break of serve that would have seen him serve for the fourth set. And you have two excellent points from Zverev where Alcaraz is just a little bit lacking on the finish after some tremendous defense. I think those 2 points need to be highlighted. Next game is 4-all. And for Alcaraz, you have a very simple malfunction of the first serve and the backhand. 15 love, backhand unforced error off the net tape. 15-all, Zverev hits a strong return, deep middle. And this is a forced error. It's not an unforced error. What caught my eye on this is Alcaraz did hit the ball cleanly, and it looked like he went for the inside-out backhand here. So Zverev, this is on the deuce side. Zverev hits this awesome deep return, and it looked like Alcaraz went for the inside-out backhand off the short hop, which is the much tougher directional to time. The easier timing is obviously to pull that cross court. And I mean, I'm just thinking you have to recognize that your opponent has hit a great return of serve here, and you need to at least go for the safer response. And if he missed the safer response, you tip your cap to Zverev. But in this case, you also have to question Alcaraz's choice. Next point, 15-30. Another second serve. This is 3 straight missed first serves. It's a backhand rally, and Alcaraz tries to change direction down the line, and it's long for an unforced error. And I want to take a second now. I want to take a second because this was a major problem and is a major problem for Alcaraz in this matchup. The backhand is not favorable, which in itself does not doom Alcaraz in any substantial way. What dooms Alcaraz in a much bigger way is the fact that he really struggles to change out of the pattern. He does not have the safe backhand redirection down the line that, he can just hit, again, not going for too much, just hit it and make it 10 out of 10 times off of a solid Zverev backhand cross-court trade. That shot, sometimes Alcaraz can kind of go middle off of Zverev's backhand cross-court and reset the point back onto his forehand, but he really needs a way to hit that pattern-changing backhand down the line on a consistent basis. And here he went for it and he missed it. He misses it a lot. Doesn't really have it. That's the problem. Break point here. Zverev made another pass. Short ball, Alcaraz backhand cross-court approach. Zverev had the backhand pass down the line. So what went wrong for Alcaraz, big picture here? 2 things. One, you can't miss so many backhands. And this is true throughout the match. Alcaraz way too erratic on the backhand here. And then the second thing that I think is worth mentioning, Zverev wasn't really hurting Alcaraz from the baseline, as I mentioned. With Alcaraz's movement and Zverev kind of leaving his zone that he was in to start the match, and the ground stroke speed going a little bit down, Alcaraz was safe when they were exchanging ground strokes for the most part. In order for Zverev to find a finish, he had to hit an approach shot. And with that in mind, you have to wonder if Alcaraz wasn't selective enough on the net approaches and the drop shots. Because if you look at so many of the big points here in the fourth set, it's Alcaraz in winning positions, kind of in a way, letting Zverev off the hook in these baseline rallies by forcing the issue with some net approaches and drop shots. Now, it has to be a part of Alcaraz's game. He's gonna, he wants to come forward. He should come forward. The drop shot is an essential tactic against Zverev. And in no way am I critiquing the fact that he's hitting it. But you do need to make sure in this situation, when the baseline dynamics are on your side, are favoring you, you do need to make sure that you are not giving a counterpuncher who hits great passing shots. You're not just letting them off the hook by showing them passing shots or letting them off the hook by hitting drop shots that they're getting to easily. You just have to make sure that when you go to those things that you have enough of an advantage. If not, stay solid, stay patient, stay on the baseline. That's not something Alcaraz does very much at this stage. So head-to-head now, 5-3 Zverev. They've played a lot of weird matches in terms of the circumstances. Each of them have wins over each other that kind of need qualifiers. In addition, Zverev is one of the few players to face Carlos a couple of times before Alcaraz was at a top 10 level. Not a lot of players can say that because there was only like a very short period of time where Alcaraz was playing tour level and he wasn't like a top 5 player. But Zverev played him twice on that stage. And for those two reasons, the weird circumstances, the two matches that Zverev played when Alcaraz when he was really young, I felt that this head-to-head has been hard to gauge. It's been hard to look at the number and discern something from the number. I think this is the match that solidifies Zverev as a very, very difficult obstacle for Alcaraz. As for the Australian Open, going forward for Zverev, the crazy part after a win like this is how much work he still has to do. The top players performed really well at this event, and the semifinals are set. It's going to be Zverev, Medvedev, Djokovic, Sinner. More on that at some point here on the channel. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.